Hi guys, today we are taking a look at the Canon R8, one of my favorite little cameras, and how it stacks up against its much bigger brother, the Canon R3. What are the compromises? What are my thoughts as a professional photographer and filmmaking of the R8. This will be a long-term review. I've owned this now for 6 months, so let's see how it stacks up against its bigger brother, the R3. Check it out. Alright, so let's start things off with the most important part of any camera, the sensor. And the sensor in the R8 is fabulous. If it's not identical, it is very close color science wise to its bigger brother, the R3. The Canon R8 has, all the things you would expect on a modern camera. It's got a micro HDMI, it has a headphone out and microphone in as well, and it also has USB-C, which I think is really good because you can charge your camera with USB-C power. I did that all the time when I used it for travel photography. So the closest competitor to the R8 is probably Panasonic's S9. Now I haven't shot with the S9 personally, but I have owned the S5 II and the S5 IIX. The R8 has way better autofocus, that's just the truth of it, but it does not have IBIS, and I felt that I really missed the IBIS, but I really liked having full frame oversampled 4K 60. Okay, so I think there are three kinds of users looking at the Canon R8. There is the enthusiast that want to step up their game, going from maybe an APS-C body to a full frame body, and they have a lot of Canon glass. That would be one type of user looking at the R8. Then we have the professionals like me that maybe want a small body to use as a backup for their main Canon bodies, which I think it did surprisingly well. And then there is the user looking for a small full frame travel cam. So if you are a beginner or an intermediate looking at the Canon R8, I think that is a really great starting point going into the Canon system, or even moving on for something like an APS-C camera. And what the Canon R8 does really well is that, from at least the YouTube videos I looked at, and owning both the Canon R3 and the R8, it inherits a lot of image performance and autofocus performance from its much bigger brothers, which is awesome. The R8 paired almost identically with my R3 if I shot them both in compressed format and put them in the same timeline. I could not for the life of me tell them apart. The UI does not get in the way of the user experience, and what I mean by that, if you look at something like the Panasonic S5, which I had previously to the Canon R8, it has such in-depth menus that it starts to get in the way of the user. It's more complicated than it needs to be, and I think Canon does this a lot better. The interface is a lot cleaner, especially if you look at something like the autofocus system, and now I'm just talking about the UI. I don't know who designed the Panasonic user interface for the autofocus, but I think it's simply atrocious. It looked like some 80s B-movie missile targeting system. The box and then the crosshairs just get so in the way, at least for me, composing my image. I just see that whole weird thing, not like what the image that I'm trying to make. Canon and Sony does this so much better, and the user interface of the autofocus system does not get in the way of the user. So for you professionals out there, I do think that the Canon R6 Mark II is probably the better choice than choosing the Canon R8 as your backup body. Speaking from experience, it does not have dual card slots, which I think is sort of a must for a professional camera. Sure, the R8 is smaller than the R6 Mark II, but it's not that much smaller compared to all the benefits you get on the R6 Mark II. So for professionals out there, the R8 is great. It does pair really well, as I said before, with the R3, but there is, I think, too many compromises going from a very professional body down to an entry full frame camera. And for the used R6 Mark II, the price is almost the same. For travel, with its small size, the Canon R8 works really well most of the time. And what I mean by that is, if you have the EF to RF adapter with VND, you can switch out lenses really quickly with different filter threads and still get a proper exposure when you're filming, so you can have the right shutter angle and get that right motion blur. Alright, so what are the limitations of the R8? Well, basically it comes down to it not having a joystick. On the R3 body, and this is a flagship, but still, we got a joystick to choose our autofocus point. We got this thing right here, which also works, and we even have eye control AF, which is super cool because for me it seems to work really well. I use this as my main vacation camera, which worked in most situations really well, but there were some key moments that I will never get back of my kids, and the camera would focus on some bushes or other stuff than the kids. I've shot with it like this, so I would have to flip out the LCD like this and choose autofocus points by clicking on the display, and it's just isn't as efficient as just using the joystick and moving the autofocus point around, which is a bit of a bummer. Alright you guys, that is it for the Canon R8. For many people this will be a great entry into Canon's full frame world. It is a really nice sensor. It looks very similar, if not identical, to my R3 in stills, and that oversampled 4K 60 really does look gorgeous. So if you have a lot of Canon lenses, this is probably the way to go. There are a lot of other great cameras out there, like the Panasonic S9, the Sony a7C Mark II and Mark I, and also the Canon R6 Mark II. But if you want a really small compact body and you are in Canon land, this is your guy. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, you know what to do. Leave some comments down below. Give this video a thumbs up. It really helps out the channel, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.